It's your boy Blood Boxing. I have another video for you here. You guys know that I did a video on Barbados Joe Walcott some years ago. I think in 2015 I made a video on him. I have to say I was impressed by this guy. I was impressed by his record. I was impressed by all the things that he had accomplished in the ring. Now, one thing about Walcott is that there was a lot of unfair advantages placed on him and other fighters. So he has some losses that I question. I question a lot of his losses too. He also fought big guys. He fought heavyweights. Let's not get him mixed up with Jersey Joe Walcott. I was doing my research and I came across something. And I have to tell you, man, after doing research on this guy like 5 years ago and seeing what I just saw, it was like seeing a ghost. Here you see images of him. There's not a whole bunch of images out there on him. There's him and Langford right here as older men, as old men actually. Him and Langford right there. They actually did fight. He ended up getting a job in Madison Square Garden. Walcott did. Here you see Walcott. He was very short. He was only 5'1". He'll get in there. He'll fight heavyweights. He was a very tough welterweight. In fact, in my opinion, he's one of the greatest of all times. To have done what he had done, he's one of the greatest of all times. Ain't no welterweight today stepping in there against no fucking kind of heavyweight who's going in there and putting the time in, training and everything like that. Ain't no welterweight stepping in with these guys for competitive boxing matches, okay? While I was looking around, I ran across this right here. There's a channel, it's called Elusive Blue. In fact, let me go ahead and subscribe to this guy. His name is Elusive Blue. And he actually has an interview with the original Joe Walcott as an old man in Madison Square Garden. When I first saw it on the side, I was like, this can't be true. But yes, man, this is actually the original Joe Walcott. And in this interview, he talks about a number of things that confirms a lot of the things that I have been speaking on and thinking for several years. He talks about some of the unfair advantages that was placed upon him. He covers that.
And here's Jake Johnson too. Well, hello boys. How are you all? I suppose you know I'm walking up to the garden, the Madison Square Garden. All the people was thinking it was a shame to put such a small man up against Joe Kowalski. Well, yes, it was a shame, but it was on Kowalski's side. And from keep on occasionally punching him out of that guard, I broke his ribs. Jim Corbett, he tried to help Kowalski by advising him. But Jim himself, he was scared to step in the ring against me. You all know what I done to Kowalski. Well, of course, I think I could have done the same thing to Mr. Corbett at that time. And I still think so today if I was just a few years younger. Boys, but I hope to see you all sometime and see some good man come up again. I wish I was back in the game again, that boxing with the boys and making some of this big money, 25 years younger. Then I'd make some of them hum like I used to. And I'm walking down to the Madison Square Garden, right around the corner from the Embassy Theater, 20, 30 years younger. I'd make some of the boys stand up and take notice. I'd be able to get me a couple of Rolls Royces too. Probably I'd be able to buy two or three. The boys getting good money these days. That don't make me any younger, and it don't give me no money. I think everything will turn out all right. I know some of you folks wish I was younger yourself. But of course they don't know and understand. I had to make 129 pounds to fight Kid Levine at 133 pounds, because I had to weigh 129 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
He's also talking about how he wished he could have made more money, man. Yep. He's talking about the money that the fighters make in the 1930s. I think this might have been the early 1930s here, or maybe the late 1920s. It's either the late 1920s or early 1930s. He's wishing that he could get the deal that those fighters like Joe Louis and them was getting, which was still next to nothing. But he's wishing he could have even got that. He paved the way for these fighters, okay? He paved the way for guys like Joe Louis and fighters that came after him, Jersey Joe Walcott, who took his name, okay? He paved the way for fighters who were still getting taken advantage of, okay? Wishing that he was younger. He's towards the end of the video, he's wishing he was 30 years younger so he could fight and go buy him a new car, Rolls Royce, and he would like to have some of the finer things in life, but now he's working as a janitor in Madison Square Garden. After all the great fights that he gave everybody, now he's having to work and clean up behind people. A champion, okay? A gladiator who got in there, participated in bare knuckle fights, all kind of stuff, all right? And this is the thanks he got to sit back here, with his broomstick and get to tell a few old stories about boxing with a camera in front of him. It's sad to say, man. That's why there's a big part of me that could understand why the fighters are the way they are now, okay? They're not cut from the cloth of these guys here, okay? They never will be. The situation has changed. The circumstances has changed. Things are different now, okay? That's why I have problems with people disrespecting fighters from the past. The way you disrespect these fighters is by false legacy claims and things like that, and fighters today saying that they're greater than these fighters when they haven't done not even a little percentage of what these fighters had to do to pave the way so they could have the great paydays they have now. And they can't even be 50% of the warriors and fulfill just some of the fights that the fans want, okay? They can't even be that, all right? They want us to sit up here and follow behind them and follow them on social media and Twitter and all this stuff that you guys like. They want us to just follow behind them blindly because they beat up some overmatched opponent. These top guys don't fight each other. This guy was fighting the top guys multiple times, okay? And then he'll leave there and go and fight a bare knuckle fight. And then he'll show up one day and a heavyweight would be the only one there who's qualified to fight him. So he'll end up having to fight a heavyweight because his opponent didn't show up. That's how it was in the late 1800s. They got on the back of wagons. They showed up to the spot. They didn't have no videos, no nothing. They didn't have nothing on their opponent. If their opponent didn't show up, you can't call them up and say, hey, where you at? Not back in 18 something, okay? So he's already an old man here in the late 20s or early 30s here, okay? He's already an old man. He's saying that the fighters today are not as good as the fighters back then. The same kind of shit that's still going on to this day, okay?